There is a program running in your head right now that you did not install and cannot see. It was written before you could speak. It finished compiling somewhere around your 2nd birthday. And every time you get close to another person, it executes, silently, instantly, before you have formed a single conscious thought about it. It decides whether you text back immediately or wait 3 hours, whether you pull closer during a fight or walk out of the room, whether the phrase "we need to talk" lands as a conversation or as a threat. Most people think these are personality traits, things they chose, things about who they are. They're not. They're the output of a survival system that was solving a completely different problem, in a completely different world, and has never once been told the emergency is over. This system is not human. It is much older than us. Attachment behavior, the drive of an infant, to stay physically near a caregiver and to panic when that distance grows, exists across the primate line and far beyond it. It predates language. It predates our species. It predates every culture that has ever tried to explain it. The reason is brutally simple. A human infant is helpless for longer than almost any animal on Earth. It cannot flee, fight, feed itself, or regulate its own temperature. Its entire survival strategy is one thing: keep the adult close. So evolution built the monitoring system directly into the base of the brain, below conscious control, and made it very loud. That system does not switch off at 18. It gets handed to you, still running, and pointed at your relationships. There are 4 patterns. Most people are secure, roughly half. Closeness reads as safe. Distance doesn't read as danger. Some run anxious, around 1 in 5. The system is overtuned. It detects abandonment that is not happening. Some run avoidant, around 1 in 5. The system learned that needing someone was the risk, so it disabled the request. And then there's a 4th pattern, fewer than 1 in 20. Both alarms fire at the same time. The person you want closest is also the person your brain flags as the threat. That 4th one explains more human behavior than the other 3 combined, and almost nobody knows it exists. We finish there. This is not a personality quiz. It is one of the most replicated findings in developmental psychology. In the 1970s, Mary Ainsworth built a controlled procedure now known as the strange situation. An infant, a caregiver, an unfamiliar room. The caregiver leaves, the caregiver returns. Everything hinges on what the child does in the reunion, not the separation. The patterns that emerged were so consistent they have been reproduced in dozens of countries for 50 years. Then in 1987, Cindy Hazan and Philip Shaver published a paper in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology proposing something that sounded absurd at the time. Adult romantic love runs on the same system. Same patterns, same proportions. They were right. In 1991, Bartholomew and Horowitz extended it into the 4-category model still used today, and decades of follow-up work, including large longitudinal studies tracking the same people from infancy into adulthood, have held the structure up. Roughly half of people are secure. If this is you, the tell is not that your relationships are easy. It's that conflict doesn't feel like a threat to the relationship's existence. You can be annoyed with someone and still assume they'll be there tomorrow. Distance is just distant. The developmental origin is unglamorous. It does not require perfect parenting. The research is clear that it doesn't. It requires a caregiver who was predictable enough. Not always available, not always right. Consistent enough that the infant's brain could build a working model. When I signal, something happens. That model becomes the default assumption you carry into every relationship afterward. Not people are good. Something more useful. My signals get responses. If you are secure, you were handed the enormous advantage of not having to think about any of this. Which is precisely why secure people are usually the worst at explaining it to anyone else. About 1 in 5 run anxious. The signature is a specific kind of vigilance. You notice the shift in tone before anyone says anything. You reread the message. The gap between sending and receiving is not neutral time, it's a live problem. Here is the part that reframes it. This is not insecurity. It is hypersensitivity, and it is genuinely accurate. Anxiously attached people are, on average, faster and more correct at detecting subtle changes in others' emotional states. The detector isn't broken. It's calibrated too fine for the environment it's running in. The origin is inconsistency, not neglect. A caregiver who was sometimes fully present and sometimes unreachable unpredictably, the infant brain cannot build a stable model from that, so it builds the only rational alternative. Monitor constantly. Escalate the signal until it works, which is exactly what protest behavior in adults is. The double text, the picked fight at midnight, those aren't manipulation. They're a 2-year-old survival strategy. Increase the signal until the adult comes back, running in a 30-year-old's relationship where it produces the opposite of the intended result. About 1 in 5 run avoidant. The signature is that you handle things alone, not resentfully, by preference. You're fine. You're genuinely fine. Intensity from a partner registers as pressure, and the reflex is to create space. The common read is that avoidant people don't feel much. The research says the opposite, and this is the most counterintuitive finding in the field. In studies measuring physiological arousal during separation, avoidantly attached individuals show stress responses comparable to anxious individuals. Elevated heart rate, elevated cortisol, while reporting that they feel nothing. The alarm is firing at full volume. Conscious access to it has been cut. That's a learned suppression, and it was once the correct move. If your bids for comfort were reliably met with irritation or absence, the efficient adaptation is to stop making bids. Don't need anything, and nothing can be withheld. So the avoidant adult isn't detached. They're running a system that decided early and rationally that the request itself was the dangerous part. Now the rare one. Fewer than 1 in 20. In the original infant research, it was the pattern that broke the coding scheme. Children who, on reunion, did something none of the categories predicted. They moved toward the caregiver and away at the same time. Approached while turning their head, froze halfway. Ainsworth's framework had 3 patterns. Mary Main and Judith Solomon had to add a 4th in the 1980s to account for them. In adults, it's called fearful avoidant, and the internal experience is exact. Come closer, I need you, and get away from me. This isn't safe, simultaneously, about the same person, with no way to resolve it. The origin is the specific case where the source of comfort and the source of fear are the same person. That produces an unsolvable problem for an infant brain. The system that says go to the caregiver when frightened, and the system that says avoid the threat both activate. Both point at the same target, and neither can win. So the behavior oscillates, intense pursuit then sudden withdrawal. Often right after things go well, because closeness is what triggers the second alarm. If this is you, the whiplash isn't instability, and it isn't a character flaw. It's 2 correct survival programs, both firing, both aimed at the same person. Naming that is most of what makes it navigable. Here's what I want you to sit with. None of these 4 patterns is a defect. Every one of them was the correct solution to the environment it formed in. Anxious vigilance is correct when care is unpredictable. You should monitor. Avoidant self-reliance is correct when bids are punished. You should stop bidding. Disorganized oscillation is the only possible output when comfort and threat share a face. Your brain didn't malfunction. It solved the problem in front of it, using a system that assumed the environment was permanent, because for 200,000 years, it was. The camp you were born into was the camp you died in. Optimizing hard for the first 2 years was the winning strategy. The mismatch is that the environment is no longer permanent. You will meet thousands of people. You'll form relationships nothing like the first one. And your system is still running the model it built before you had words, treating a 2-year sample as the permanent truth about how people behave. That's the actual problem. Not that you're broken, that you're extremely well adapted to a world you left decades ago. So what's usable here? The most important finding: attachment style is not fixed. Longitudinal research finds meaningful stability from infancy into adulthood, but far from total. A substantial share of people change category over their lifespan, and the strongest predictor of change is sustained experience of a relationship that behaves differently than the model predicts. Your model updates on evidence. It just needs a lot of it. If you're secure, your regulation is contagious. Staying steady when a partner escalates is the single highest leverage thing you do, and you likely don't know you're doing it. If you're anxious, the goal is not to stop feeling the alarm. You won't. It's to add a gap between the alarm and the action. The feeling is real information about your state. It is usually not accurate information about their intentions. If you're avoidant, notice the moment you decide you'd rather handle it alone. That decision happens fast and feels like preference. Stating the need out loud once, before the space opens, is the entire practice. If you're disorganized, naming which alarm is firing in the moment does more than any technique. This is the pull-away one. Labeling it interrupts the automatic swing. And across all four, the pattern activates under threat, not at baseline. You will never see your real style on a good day. You see it during conflict, distance, and uncertainty. That's when the old software runs. Work out which one is yours. Not from a good week, from the last time something went wrong. That's the pattern. And you cannot change a program you can't see running. Next, we're covering why your brain sabotages you right at the moment things start going well. The same ancient system, a different failure mode. Subscribe so you don't miss it. This is Psychology OS. Your brain is still running the old software.